You just watched a video of two people talking about life. They've got a lot in common, but then they realize that it's almost as though they're from different planets. If you understand this, you'll understand why you think so many other people are very stupid, because they don't see the world the same way you do. Now, I'll just give you a warning beforehand. I'm going to show you some images that are quite confronting, but I think this will illustrate how some people think completely differently to you. Here is the first one. Have a look at it. As you can see, someone is pushing a sharp rod through this man's cheeks. The whole crowd is looking on. Nobody is trying to stop it. To you and me, that would be shocking. We'd think, it's possibly someone doing a magic trick. The reality of this is actually, this is a Hindu festival. It happens every year. This man is piercing his skin as part of a religious ritual. Very, very different to your perspective. So the question is, what is his worldview and the worldview of the people around him to be able to do this? Very different view to yours, probably. Have a look at another. This person is covered in piercings, and all of us try to enhance our appearance. For this person, they are trying to enhance their appearance. Now, most of you would never think of doing this, but it is because the person's view of what is attractive is completely different to yours. How about this? These are underskin implants, which would be shocking to many of us. And if you think about the pain involved, most of us would go, there's no way. But for this person, the tattoos and the implants have meaning for this person. So you have to go, what is your worldview? What are you trying to achieve? How do you see the world differently from me? Have a look at this person. This is a person, obviously from Africa. But as you can see, an incision has been made in the lip, and a large clay disc has been fit into the bottom lip. Now you may ask, my goodness, what kind of body modification is this? This might be something that would be totally foreign to you. You'd never think of doing something like this yourself. This is actually part of the culture. This tribe has a special saying that says, from too much talking, you get wars between nations and fights between husband and wife. So they actually encourage people to wear this disc in their lips so that there will be less talking and less fighting. A very different worldview to what you would have in the West. Here is another worldview. Very much in the age of feminism, the whole idea of a man walking with a woman with a chain around her neck is totally unacceptable. But in this scenario, with these two people, this could have a totally different cultural context, a totally different perspective. Obviously, they are from a subculture where they have a very different worldview to yours. What you might like and what you might think is cool is not necessarily what they espouse. Have a look at this gentleman. He is covered in tattoos, and tattoos all over his face. And immediately, for some people, they would get really scared because they might assume that he is part of a gang. He might just like tattoos on his face. What is his worldview? How does he see it? Why would he want a tattoo in his face? This is something that is also foreign to us. This is actually where bungee jumping comes from. There's a tribe in Vanuatu where the young men have to prove their worth every year by jumping from a massive structure that they build, tie vines to their ankles, and then try to swing past with your head as close to the ground to prove how brave you are. This is a rite of passage for this tribe, but a very different worldview where proving that you are a man is really, really important and proving that you are brave and not afraid of dying. Have a look at this guy. He has many tattoos. He looks rather aggressive. What do you think is his world view? Remember him? Have a look at who he really is. He is an artwork. We live in an age where it is more difficult to tell the difference between fake and truth than ever before. Even if you look at deep fakes these days, you can actually make politicians say something with computer programs that they don't even mean. The deep fake is very real, and we are now in a world that is called a hyper-real world, where the things we experience online are almost better than the things in real life, as you can see with this statue that this man has made. So if you think about videos, if you look at a kung fu movie, it is exciting, it is intense, but the reality of the set is actually something like this. There's a whole crew watching the action, and it's not even close to as intense as when you watch the movie yourself. Think about the use of shots. If you look at just how the lighting, the angle, the close-ups, the different approaches to shots manipulate our emotions, you can see that a lot of the film industry is geared towards evoking emotion and intensity. Does your life sometimes feel incredibly dull compared to the experience of others? Is it because you've been lulled into this idea that life should be very exciting and very intense all the time? And that's why you get bored so incredibly easily. Have a look at this image. This is an image of, as you can see, a man holding a gun against another soldier's head. And they're pulling his head back. What if this image is not the truth? What if the image has been manipulated? What if you see the image and it looks like this? Now it's a very different perspective. The same man in uniform is being given water by a soldier. Just by the way that the photo has been cut could change the way we view it. Our worldview is altered. And the same way, if you view the world through a certain lens, you might miss some important details because you're looking through that lens. Have a look at the whole image. This is actually what happened. This was during Operation Iraqi Freedom, where an Iraqi soldier was captured, but he was actually given water because he had been wandering around. He was just dropped off in the middle of the desert, and he had been wandering around for days, and these American soldiers were actually giving him water because he didn't know where he was. They had arrested him. He is tied up, but they're giving him water. Very different perspective to that first photo and the first impression it makes on you. Now, the hypersensory world is quite an interesting world. Have a look at this video. This is actually an advertisement by Marks and Spencer. Now you see the beautifully draped fruit and the honey. The truth is, actually, these pancakes have been sprayed with hairspray to make them nice and stiff. The honey that you see there is actually colored baby oil to give it that loopy, droopy appearance. And the fruit have been treated to be more glossy than what they really are. Welcome to hyperreality. Hyperemotion is also something. Have you watched a movie and you choke back tears or you are elated because of what happens? It's because we have a marketing world that engages your emotion. Just look at this little face. Immediately, it twists your heart. You can see the sadness in that little face. That face is hyperreal. No little kid has that intensity in the eyes. No little kid looks exactly like that, but the hyperreal nature of it really engages with our emotion. Have a look at this one. This is a hyperreal painting of someone in a shower, but the water is more intense than real water. It is a world of hyper emotion. Have a look at this gentleman. What do you think he's thinking? Look deep into his eyes. There's a deep thought in there. Here is the truth. There is no deep thought. He's just another statue. It's that hyper-real world of a massive statue, and this is actually part of the real display. But now it is so difficult to tell between reality and hyper-reality. So how do we go home? How do we get to a place where hyper-awareness doesn't govern our lives? That's why some of you will already have started tuning out just during this lesson, because it's not hyper enough. So we have a financial system built on dissatisfaction. Think about it. You get your new phone and you're already thinking, oh, the next phone I'll get, or the next app, the next piece of technology I'll get, the new clothing. There's always something. Our financial system is built on this dissatisfaction and encourages you to spend more, spend more, spend more to try and achieve a certain look, a certain coolness, a certain acceptability. Now, here's a quote that I want you to pay attention to. In marketing, you must choose between boredom, shouting, and seduction. Which do you want? So you'll see that there's a lot of shouting and seduction that actually happens in our advertising today. Here are a few other quotes. Trevor Dunn says, pop culture is not about depth. It's about marketing, supply and demand, consumerism. They're trying to sell you something. Have you ever seen in the shows that you watch how many product placements there are? Listen to what Sylvester Stallone says. Now, it really is, believe it or not, 90% of the films are greenlit, not by studio heads, but by the marketing department. Product placement is all over it. You see someone open a Coke, wear a certain brand of shoe. All of that has been placed by marketing departments. So, marketing has supplanted story as the primary force behind the worthiness of making a film. And that's a very sad thing. It's film only as a function of consumerism rather than as an important component of our culture. And that's everywhere around the world. The reality is life is not always fun. For most of us, actually, most of life is pretty, it's okay. It's not great. It's not bad. I'm just there. I'm doing stuff. Here and there, we've got moments where you feel elated, and then there are other moments where you feel quite sad. All of us go through that pattern. It's like a figure eight. Sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're at the bottom. You want to be on the top more than at the bottom. But it's not always fun. Some people are struggling, some people are in poverty, but if you look at some celebrities, many of them who have everything we think about, stressed, depressed, drugged up, unhappy, despite the fact that they have everything that the advertising world says we need. But here is another reality of life, and it's a reality check that, yes, we age. Yes, as we age, it eventually leads to death. And it's one of those things that is a topic that is very rarely covered unless it's an action movie and there are swathes of dead people left behind the hero who kills them remorselessly and feels nothing for it. Now, what if you could live in permanent hyperreality? Have a look.
Hey, Carol, don't you pull over to the nervous breakdown lane? Hey, Weezy Jefferson, bring it down a notch.
He wasn't having a good time of it. Can you imagine if you really lived in hyperreality all the time? What would happen? So here is a difference between success and significance. And what we want to achieve when we talk about the meaning of life is what is significance. So if you have a friend, ask yourself, how do I stabilize myself against a marketing campaign to enslave me? And where does God fit in?